All right, so I'm negotiating with Christine. Um, as far as what I'm wanting to ask, I would like to gauge her a little bit. Some of the facts are not as specific as I would like, namely why she had a 1 year hiatus from performing. So I'd like to gauge that. Also, see if she has any expectations. I know that her client contacted us, so I'd like to, instead of going right for a position, what kind of money she wants, I'd like to focus on what are her interests. That 1 year hiatus was due to personal problems. If she couldn't find a job, and she's wanting to get back into work, maybe we could work out something with, promotion with regards to advertising instead of just straight money, because we would do that anyway. So my goal is to try and gauge her interest and then use that to influence what I offer.
All right, my goal today for Sally Soprano is to get her ultimate interest, which is the role. And then ultimately she'd like to get the TV show. So by getting the role, she's opening herself up to possibly getting a TV show. So that's her ultimate interest in this. And in doing so, we're hoping to get $45,000 with a contingency based on the percentage of the total house at the end. And my goal is to try to get 4% of that total house. So if she fills 90% of the house, whatever that comes to in monetary, she'll get 4% of the cut on top of the $45,000 to do the show. So that's really it. That's our interests. And I'm assuming that their interests are going to be specifically getting an actress to fill the role that they don't have filled at the moment.
How are you doing today?
I'm all right.
Good deal. So obviously we're here to make arrangements for Sally and my client for her to sing at our production. Eventually we're going to have to talk about numbers.
Okay.
Before we do, if you wouldn't mind, I had a few quick questions as far as your client, and that may allow me to give a more appropriate offer.
Okay.
According to our records, your client has been out of work for a little while, about a year.
Yeah, I think she's been out for just a little while because she's getting a little bit older. So she's been taking less stuff as she gets older.
Gotcha. So is she just losing interest in the field?
No, I just think, she's paid some of her dues, and the older she gets, the more she wants to take specific roles that she really enjoys and knows that she can do well in, as opposed to just kind of taking everything that comes her way, being a little more picky.
Okay. Well, I understand that after putting your time in, it's hard not to.
Yeah, well, I'll be there one day, right? Hopefully.
Hopefully. Okay, so obviously we're excited to hear from her. She's been in this production before, although I'll bet in a secondary role is her most recent one.
Yeah.
We show 4 years ago she did the role that we're actually here negotiating now. Is that correct?
Yeah, so that was one of the things that when I discussed this with her that she brought up was the fact that she already knows this role. And we know you guys are on a time constraint because this is 3 weeks away. And so, she already knows it. And so for her to be able to actually do the performance wouldn't require a ton of extra work for her to make sure that she's prepared for it, as opposed to having to reteach this to somebody who's never seen the role before and having them relearn the whole thing. So I think that definitely works to everybody's advantage.
Oh, absolutely. Is there any reason that she came out at this particular time? Like I said, I know according to our records, the last show that she did was actually for us about a year ago. Is there any reason why now is she wanting to get back into regular acting, or does she just love this role?
She's looking to take her career to a different level now. She's kind of trying to branch off and go from this type of performance to more of a TV route. And so she's in that process. And this is just one more notch under her belt, so to speak, in that experience.
So basically, she's looking to get a little bit more notoriety for a chance to transition to small screen.
To a degree, yeah. And she's got age on her side, which is good for this role. I think where she is in life and her age together actually is beneficial to this specific part in the play. And so, she thinks she can do a really good job at it, and she can get a lot of people to come in and not only benefit you guys in getting, a lot of money and having your name out there, so to speak. And, but it could also help her at the same time.
Well, I mean, that all sounds great. I'll go ahead and get to the point that I know we're both wondering about. As far as payment for her role, now we do have another actor that can perform the role. Obviously, you can probably tell from me accepting this interview, we do really want the client. She's been in the role before, like you said. She has experience. I mean, and she's great. The one reservation we have is that she's been off for a year, and more so that she hasn't had a lead role in a long time.
And that's understandable. I mean, we completely understand that you would be reserved having had her been out of this, field for a little while. And I know you guys are concerned about her age being a factor. And that makes complete sense. But she's confident, and she feels very strong that it's unlikely that she can't bring in the numbers that you guys are looking to bring in to the house on that night to make sure that you guys have a good production, and you don't just sort of tank this whole thing. So she's pretty confident on that.
Okay. Well, I'm glad she's confident. You can probably tell we are a little nervous, being 3 weeks, announcing a new lead, and her being out of, productions for a while, for a number of reasons, both. And I mean, absolutely no offense by this. Her age is a little bit of a factor. Just naturally, as singers get older, their vocal cords tend to go. I mean, Edith Piaf, the Sparrow of Paris. Even in her latter years, she, her vocals started to suffer, and also being out of practice. I mean, it's physically demanding, and we'd have to think about this as asking an athlete who's been out of practice for a year to come in and 3 weeks notice,
ready to go,
be show ready.
Yeah. What are you guys looking at as your sort of ballpark figure of what you're willing to pay her out for?
Ballpark figure. I know that the last time we paid her, it was for the secondary role. Like I said, she hasn't done a lead role in a long time. Right now, we're looking at about 25,000, and if I can justify that amount, I know it's slightly lower than she may want. It's a factor of selling tickets, and the possibility of her being out of practice, because she hasn't had the exposure in recent years that she used to. Ticket sales, could possibly be affected, and we can't necessarily gamble that as a nonprofit organization.
Right. How about we look at it as, a couple of years ago, the same role from somebody who didn't know the role and had no experience got paid $22,000 roughly. And since then, that number's doubled. So if we were just strictly going off the numbers, we'd be looking at $44,000. And I think that's a little bit high, maybe, because of the factors, like you said, her age and things that you're worried about. And we're not trying to, slam you guys and say, look, it's double. We want 44,000, and that, that's the end of that. But if we were strictly going to look at numbers, we'd be looking at the 44,000 range. But I think she'd definitely be willing to come down from that a little bit.
And you said strictly looking at numbers. So, I mean, she's looking to transition. She's looking for more notoriety. So what if we threw in, obviously, changing a new lead, we're going to have to put that out to the press. What about some publicity and some promotions for her?
I mean, that's definitely not, I haven't spoken to her about that, and I think that's a really good option. And it sounds really good because it will help her. Let me throw one more thing at you. Something that we did discuss was maybe having a contingency fee, because I know that you guys are worried that maybe she won't bring in the numbers that you're looking for. And like I said earlier, she's pretty confident that that's not going to happen. So if we say, here's a hard and fast fee that we're going to pay you, whatever that number might be that we come to. But then if you bring in 80% or you bring in 90% of that house, we'll give you a 4% additional pay on whatever that total comes to. And I crunched a lot of the numbers, and the tickets range from 18 to 55. And if we were going to give the lowest of the low end, that's $36,000 per show. And if I'm correct, we're looking at 18 performances. So I mapped it out, and it'd be on the low end, you're making $648,000 for all the performances together. And on the high end, you're making just shy of $2 million. So if she brings in, a $45 ticket and she's bringing in 80% of the house, you're making close to $2 million. So I think, a 4% of that's a really small number when you look at it. So it kind of gives the incentive to her to make sure she uses the publicity that you guys are willing to help her get. She can use that publicity to advertise for this and for her own, of course.
Of course.
And bring in those numbers that everybody wants. And it will help you and it will help her, because if she does her job and brings in the numbers that she's confident she can do, then I think everybody kind of wins.
I completely agree with that. It's a little bit of a shock, this industry standard, at least for us, for our contract, is a flat rate, but I don't think that a contingency is out of the question at all. The one concern I do have is that, and I know that she's confident, and I love that about her, we're not 100% sure. Some of her, in recent years following may have dropped off a little bit. If, our goal to usually break even is about 80% of the house full. Without that, we lose substantial amounts of money. And that goes with just overhead, paying the actors,
because you've got other people. That makes sense.
And so, I wouldn't say contingency out of the question. I would want to make sure that we definitely clear that 80% mark, and probably put it close to, if we make over 85%, then I would have no problem
giving her an additional 4% or something in that range, because 4% of $2 million isn't really all that much. If I did the math right, I think it was like $30,000 or something total, and that's for all. That'd be complete for all 18 performances, like not per performance or anything. Assuming she pulls 90% or something, we're looking at.
And that's just from our perspective. We need, from us as a nonprofit, we need to try and protect the assets we have.
I get that. That makes sense.
So we want to make sure that we clear our overhead costs, obviously. And because it's the contingency is unknown, so it's hard for us to calculate, but I don't think that's out of the question.
Okay, so then let's say we'll agree to the publicity stuff. I think that's a great idea, because that not only helps with this performance and getting that number, but it can also help her down the road. So I think that's really good. I think anything over 85%, I think if she brings anything past 85% of the house, a 4% contingency fee sounds.
Now with that, if she brings in, even if she brings in 86%, that still drops us down to 82, which is over our threshold to break even. But taken in totality, it's still a little costly for us.
Would it be better if we went a little bit less on the percentage? She's willing to go down 3%.
What would you say, is she interested in any other productions that we have going on?
Not that I'm aware of. I'd have to go back and talk to her, but not to my knowledge.
You talk about she's interested in transitioning into publicity and kind of getting back in the spotlight. What if we guaranteed her, a few auditions? Would that sweeten the pot anymore?
Probably not. Just because she doesn't really want to be in this particular field. She wants to get into the TV stuff, and you guys are doing a lot more production stuff, which isn't really the route she's trying to take anymore, which is
understandable
part of this. So let's leave it off on the side for the moment. Let's come up with a good hard number that we can try to agree on, and then once we figure that out, maybe we can come to a better agreement on the other.
Okay. So And just to make sure that we're on the same page so far, we have the publicity that she does want.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the 2 points that we're left with are the base price and any contingency fees.
Yes, and I think you said 20. What did you say? 25,000.
I said 25.
And the high is 44. So if we come down from that somewhere to try and meet relatively in the middle there, we're looking at what? 32%, 32,000. I mean, somewhere in there.
The middle of that would be about 32,000.
Would she or would they be willing to go to 32?
The actress who previously had this role had it for about 30,000.
Okay.
And again, just because taking the factors that she's out of practice a little bit, especially if we're throwing in contingency fee, I think 32 would be a little high for us.
Okay.
What would you say about coming up to 30 and lowering the contingency fee?
I think we can do that.
And the reason I say that is, I'm not trying to be difficult or anything.
No, yeah.
Our other actresses are getting paid a fraction.
Yeah.
Usually half of what the lead role gets. And, if we pay our lead role 30,000 and then people find out we gave you 32 plus a contingency, it looks really bad on our point. And granted, most of the thing is confidential, but
right. Things
performers have a way of talking.
Yes.
And, it could shoot ourselves in the foot as far as making it difficult to supply future actors if they said you pay this actress performer so much. I want that. Yeah.
Okay. I think that's a good number. I think we can do that. And I think we could even come down a little on the contingency. How about we do 2%, and that'll put you closer to your 85 or your 80%, and it shouldn't affect you guys too much, especially because I think we'll be perfectly fine getting over the 80% house. And then 2% of that, which is going to be an even smaller fraction.
Right.
And like I said, I only calculated the numbers on the $18 side, and that's $2 million. If you're talking, $55 a ticket, you're looking at a couple of $1 million. Right. So, 2% is going to be a pretty small number, and you'll still be over your 80%. I think that works for her. I think she'll be happy with that.
Okay. Now, for the high end, it is going to be a few million. Would you mind putting a cap on the contingency fee? Obviously, she'll still get it.
Right.
If it's, if let's say we have a full house and sell every ticket, I think the average ticket price, which we generally try to calculate on, is about $28. So a full house, that is a few million. Would you mind capping it at something?
Yeah.
And the only reason I bring that up is not to disrespect your client. It's mostly for the fact that we can't, for our industry, we can't try and isolate an actor or actress or performer to the detriment of others as far as.
And we don't want you to harm the rest of your people. So how about we say this? If at $18 a ticket, you're pulling $2 million. 2% of that would be such a small, we're looking at what? Less than $20,000. And that's the $18 ticket. So how about we say this? If you're averaging a $25 ticket, we'll cap it at an additional 30, as opposed to, because if you make $6 million, 2% of $6 million is, I'm not entirely sure of the math on that at this very moment, but it's going to be somewhere in that $60,000 ballpark, I would imagine. Okay. So let's say we'll just cap it out, whatever this 30 is, and we won't go over that.
Most 60,000 is what we're at right now. That's the most 30 up front and then a 30 contingency.
Potentially, of
course.
That's a cap. If we only pull in $2 million, I can break it out and do the math right now, but it'd be less than that. In fact, I can do that math right now. Let me pull it up and I'll do it for you. See what it is. It's the one thing I didn't divide out. It'd be, let's see.
I believe we're still at if it's over 85%. So let's say.
Yes.
And can we make that in a way that makes sure, how about if it's.
I apologize, this isn't the $55. I'm sorry about that. This is the $55 would be the $2 million. Okay. Yes. So if we're on the low end, we're actually looking more at 648,000, and we'll do that times a 2% contingency, and you're looking at 12,960. At the low end, that's the $18,000 cap. If you're doubling that, let's just double it because you're talking in the 225.
Right. It's I believe the average ticket sales for $28.
Yeah. So we're looking at 1, 2, 9, 6. 25,000 at that price. So really, we're under that 30,000. So if you want to make that cap 20,000, if that makes you guys feel your company feel better, we can even do that. Cap it at a $20,000 contingency.
We can cap it at. I'll do 25,000. Cap it at 25,000 if it's over 90%.
Okay.
Would that be acceptable?
Yeah.
Okay, so.
Works for me.
Just to reiterate everything, make sure we're on the same page. 30,000 up front, plus publicity, of course. Now, if we sell over 90% of house, she'll get 2%.
Up to 25,000. Works for us.
Okay.
Awesome.
We'll drop the agreement, and it's been a pleasure.
Yes. Awesome.